ever wonder where all those little planes go when they take off from your airport? If you lived in Idaho, there's a good chance that many of them would be going to one of our backcountry airstrips. This would be a little dirt landing field set beside a stream in some mountain valley, certainly not on the schedule of any airline. Idaho has more backcountry strips than any other state in the lower 48, and they provide an outstanding wilderness access. You can fly in one of the 20th century's greatest inventions, and when you walk off the runway into that countryside, it's changed little since Lewis and Clark. Whether you like to hike, bike, fish, or just sit and enjoy the quiet, getting there by airplane is a unique and rewarding experience. In this video, we're going to visit some of these strips. On the way, we'll get a spectacular view of mountains and meadows and rivers and canyons. We'll see Idaho from a perspective that you don't get from a car window. So buckle your seatbelt and hold on. One of Idaho's most popular backcountry airstrips is Johnson Creek. The field has been an active runway since the 1930s, when pioneer pilots landed in a grassy meadow. Since then, it's been enlarged and improved to be a long, smooth grass runway with outstanding facilities for pilots. This makes it an excellent backcountry wilderness access point. Flatland pilots may be a little uncomfortable flying this close to the scenery in a mountain valley, but the airplane flies just the same as it did over Kansas at 6,000 feet. It's just that now the runway is at 5,000 feet and the ridge tops are 8,000. Your best insurance policy is flight lessons from a qualified mountain flying instructor. The books and videos on mountain flying are great information, but there's no substitute for a real-life expert sitting in that right seat when you're making your first white-knuckle approach into a new airstrip. At Johnson Creek, when the winds are light, we normally make landings from the north toward the south, going upstream. At this point, your airspeed, flaps, and power should be right on the money, because a go-round can be risky if you're too fast and too high. This field is pretty long and wide, so you'll be okay if you touch down in the first third. The soft grass and uphill slope will slow you down without hard braking. There's often unexpected turbulence in these valleys, even below treetop level. Sometimes the best of pilots are surprised and have to scramble to salvage a landing. Why does this always happen when the judges are looking? Welcome to Johnson Creek. If you want to spend several days here, you can put up your tent right beside your plane. That's pretty convenient. But there's also a fully equipped campground here too. Built and maintained by the state of Idaho, it's just for pilots. There are times when it does get crowded, like when the Cessna 180-185 Club brings in more than 100 planes. But regardless of where you camp, you'll have clean toilets, hot showers, and a good supply of cut firewood. There's even a webcam. All kinds of airplanes fly in here, kit-built, factory-made, and even a few classics. This fully restored de Havilland Beaver feels right at home here in the Idaho backcountry, but it leads a pretty pampered life with a cozy hangar. On some summer days, it can get blazing hot, even here at 5,000 feet. Forget the high-density altitude takeoffs. Use the plane as a shade for a nap, or head down to the creek to cool off. The Johnson Creek airstrip was named for the creek that runs right beside it. There's a sandy beach just a short walk away. This is a great place to wade and play, and that icy water coming off the high-altitude snowmelt will take your breath away and cool you down in a hurry. Don't forget your pets. They get hot too.
It was spectacular!
If you have the energy to walk up the hill a bit, there's a natural hot spring that feeds an old-fashioned tub. Those guys who carried it up here must have been crazy or really drunk. You're never far from wildlife here. In the fall, the deer and elk hunting is quite good. Johnson Creek flows into a fork of the Salmon River, which flows into the Snake River, which runs into the Columbia River, and that goes into the Pacific Ocean. Every year, returning salmon swim upstream through more than 600 miles of river and 8 major dams to come back to their birth streams to spawn and then die. This miracle of their life cycle is absolutely amazing. Right at the end of the runway is the remains of an old mining operation. Let's wander down and have a look.
Inside, all of the logs on the lower level are papered with old newspapers from Idaho Statesman, New York Times, and there's just like these little bits and pieces that, and I haven't found a date yet on them.
There's a courtesy van that pilots can use to go to town. Town here means Yellow Pine, where the world-famous Harmonica Festival is held the first week of August. It's an event you don't want to miss. Some folks here get inspired to play the harmonica. Others just get inspired.
Well, this is a program supported by the Idaho Aviation Foundation, and it's called Wilderness Within Reach. It was founded about 16 years ago, and it started out with day trips for access to the wilderness areas of Idaho for those that really can't easily access the wilderness physically. And so we started getting volunteer pilots and services, and we fly these folks back here every year. And there's just a nominal service fee, like $25, and they can come enjoy a weekend in the Idaho backcountry. This is a program designed to show that the airplane can actually be an asset back here and not a detriment to a wilderness. And that's kind of the way we designed the program, and it's been going strong ever since.
Backcountry fires are a major threat to Idaho forests, so rapid reaction is critical for suppression. Johnson Creek provides a frontline staging area and supply base for firefighters. The success of Johnson Creek is, in large part, based on the hard work of the caretakers, Gene and Cody Hargett. They're the ones who make the place such a pleasure for pilots.
Sometimes it's a little tiring and everything. By the end of the year, we're ready to leave.
Yeah.
Well, no, I take that back. At the end of the year, when everybody's gone and it's peaceful and quiet, we'd like to spend the winter. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
But after a winter of being away from it, we can't wait to get back.
And just what do pilots think of this place?
Oh, we came in from Waukesha, which is just west of Milwaukee, and we've been having a great time with the 185 group, and then up to Cabin Creek. We've had 2 days at Cabin Creek, now 2 days at Moose Creek. So there's, I guess, just unlimited flying, and once in a while the fish bite.
Caught a couple fish, had a few little ones on, but I caught one 13-incher, and that makes your day, so I'm a happy camper.
We come from Lebanon, Oregon, and we come over to Johnson Creek just to camp out and enjoy the backcountry, and really think it's a nice place over here. It's just, with the showers and everything and all the scenery, it's just fantastic.
We've had this beaver for over 20 years. We restored it. It took us 10 years to restore it. We used to come in here in a Super Cub years ago, and we've gone to a lot of the strips here, but we like this one because we're getting old and we like hot shower and clean toilet facilities. We live in Colorado now, and we do not have one airstrip in Colorado that we can do this.
Really?
Not one. And we think it's just fabulous that the state of Idaho and the Forest Service has these runways and lets the public use them, and we feel it's a real privilege.
Whether I visit is for a day or a week, eventually it's time to leave. There's lots of other airstrips to see and explore. Takeoffs at mountain strips call for more thought and planning than in the flatlands. The high density altitude means you have to be moving faster to get enough lift, and at the same time the engine and prop are putting out less thrust than at lower elevation. The grass runway that slowed you down so nicely in landing makes an extra drag on the takeoff roll. The runway slope makes a difference too. And in the mountains, the wind can change dramatically when you get above treetop level. All things considered, it's best to do your takeoffs in the cool and calm morning air. Better safe than sorry. Our next destination is Big Creek, about 16 miles north as the crow flies. But we'll wander around a little to gain safe altitude in order to cross an 8,600-foot high pass. After passing over the saddle with a good safe clearance, it's good to announce your position and intentions on 122.9 so anyone in the area will be aware of what you're going to do. The guidebooks recommend landing on runway 19 when the wind conditions permit. Like at all mountain strips, having your speed and altitude under control when you turn final is absolutely essential. Go-rounds are definitely not recommended here. On the ground, you really notice the slope of the airstrip, and you realize why you slowed down so fast on that lower part. It takes a lot of power to taxi uphill to the tie-down area. That slope will be a big help on takeoff, particularly if it's hot. The Big Creek Airport is owned by the state of Idaho, but it's surrounded by Forest Service land. It's just a short walk from the airstrip to the lodge.
Most people come to the lodge to hike or fish. Big Creek is top 5 in the nation for cutthroat fishing, or just to sit on the porch and relax. But most of our business is people that fly in their airplanes. A lot of people fly in just to eat breakfast and then they'll leave.
Breakfast at the lodge is a big attraction for all kinds of flyers. What could be nicer on a sunny morning than a plate of bacon and eggs with pancakes?
Did you just get into that?
Overnight guests at the lodge eat their supper family style and really enjoy the fresh apple pie. It may look rustic on the outside, but guests here find plenty of comfort and conveniences in the rooms and cabins. It's comforting to know that if you get stuck here because of the weather, you won't starve or freeze to death. Directly next to the tie-down area is the Forest Service campground. It's clean and well maintained. There's a water supply and clean toilets, but no hot showers. The Forest Service charges you to spend the night in their campground. No, this isn't a bath. It's a watering trough for the horses. Campers, Hunters and fishermen often use horsepackers to haul their gear into the wilderness. This seems like a sensible way to save your back and your feet. If you don't want to go that long, then a couple of hours on a trail ride can be a great way to see the local scenery. Looking for some fishing? There's several excellent trout streams within walking distance. Ask at the lodge for directions to the creek where the fish are biting that week. Maybe you'd just like to hike around a little. There's no end of places to go. A nearby trail can take you to the top of the ridge. It's not too steep or rocky, and you can get views of your lodge, your airplane, as well as the big creek drainage that you flew down during your approach. Planes from all over the country come to Big Creek. This custom-built Piper Cub flew all the way from Florida.
Came to Idaho because I don't think there's any place quite like it in the lower 48. As far as you're able to land, be able to land near good hiking and rivers. I primarily like to fish, so there's a stream right behind us here, and I'll be able to land here, camp here, and then fish. And it's just the best. I believe I first heard about it in a magazine article, and then bought a video by Sporty Imeson and watched that a couple of dozen times and convinced myself I could do it. Took training both times. First time out, I took 3 hours of training out of a chalice, and then in this trip I've taken 3 hours again. I don't think anybody should be out here without it. The references are totally different from flatland. I mean, from Florida. It's just all, the references are totally different. And then it's intimidating having a mountain 2,000 feet above you when you're only 2,000 feet off the ground. First I seek out a place that's not terribly crowded and with a walking distance to a stream, and drag out the fly rod and take a hike and catch some fish. And out here you can relax and fish for a couple hours and then camp. Cook your fish if you're in an area where you can keep them, and much more peaceful. Smiley Creek, I think, has got one of the more comfortable camping areas, along with Johnson Creek and Big Creek. And then if you want to get back where there's nothing, you can go into Lower Loon or Upper Loon and Soldier Bar and Cabin Creek and be literally by yourself. I spent 4 days by myself at Bernard, and it's great.
At takeoff time, the influence of the runway slope and the wind have to be carefully considered. With this good downhill slope, a little tailwind can be tolerated. Too much tailwind, though, and the airplane can't climb when it gets down in the canyon. Always use the airplane's operating manual and be conservative in calculating your takeoff distance. Remember, this is a fun trip, not delivery of the life-saving drugs. When there's doubt, sit it out until later. A very important aspect of mountain flying is learning the terrain. That means primarily where are the valleys and where do they go. Since it's almost always VFR flying using old-fashioned pilotage, knowing and recognizing the creeks, lakes, peaks, and valleys is essential. The pattern at Smiley Creek is east of the airstrip to keep the airplane noise away from the community. When the wind permits, land on runway 14 from the north. The winds can be quite squirrely, and the 7,200 feet elevation means that you have to keep on top of your airspeed and power. Rising terrain to the south makes a go-around not desirable. When the wind is coming from the north, a landing on 3-2 is possible, but this requires more careful flying on the approach over the higher ground. Smiley Creek is in the heart of a former gold mining area. There's hardly a creek or river in Idaho that hasn't been explored for gold. The prospectors were lucky here at Smiley Creek and found enough gold for a major gold rush in the 1800s. Horses and mules packed out millions of dollars of gold to Boise over rugged mountain trails. The boom is gone now. The closest gold is in the jewelry stores down in Sun Valley. What's left here is the treasure of outdoor adventure and recreation in the Sawtooth Mountains. That treasure goes out in the minds and cameras of the many visitors who come here to find that experience. Sometimes there's a big variety of flying machines on the field. Fat-tired Super Cubs, Waco biplanes, and even an ancient but fully restored Travel Air stop for a visit. The beautiful woodwork and wicker seats show the glory of a bygone era. This J3 Cub with identical paint scheme is the hangar mate of the Travel Air. From across the ocean comes this unique STOL aircraft, a Polish Wilga. Look at that prop carefully and you'll see that it turns the wrong way. On weekends when there's a fly-in, pilots bring just about anything that'll get off the ground to camp here in the grass and have fun. The wide assortment of airplanes and camping gear certainly shows that this is not just for the super wealthy. The lucky ones who get here early can put up their tents in the real campground, just a few yards from the tie-down area. There are picnic tables and weather covers, as well as good drinking water. Best of all, there's real bathrooms with hot showers. The little stream that runs right beside the campground is actually the start of the Salmon River. Cross over the footbridge to get to the Smiley Creek Lodge, where you can get a meal, a room, a drink, or some fish hooks. Planes that take MoGas can pick up a few extra gallons just to make it down to Haley. If you're feeling adventurous, you can rent one of the teepees for the night. The bathrooms are more convenient than the regular rooms, though. Where there's tourists, there's always souvenirs and gifts. Chainsaw carvings and Indian jewelry is the specialty here. You can buy the jewelry or the turquoise stones to make your own. Some pieces can certainly be a visual indicator of your importance or wealth.
It's me.
The airstrip is not closely surrounded by wilderness, but you can take the airport courtesy car to nearby forests and lakes for outdoor adventure. A favorite trip is driving south to the headwaters of the Salmon River. The road goes through the middle of sheep herding country where lonesome Peruvian shepherds have left their marks. A few inches of water on the road doesn't slow down the airport car, but it's always good to check out the crossing first. The nearest tow truck is about an 8-mile walk away. High in this mountain valley is the real start of the Salmon River. In a good year, a few salmon swim over 900 miles to spawn in the gravel beds here. The use of small dogs for bait is not an approved fishing technique. Heading north, you could go to Alturas Lake, where there are more and better fishing opportunities. When it's time to go, everybody wants to get in the air while it's cool and calm. The high-density altitude and soft grass means that the takeoff distance could be 3 times longer than at sea level. And also, the rate of climb is greatly decreased. Luckily, there are no obstacles or hills for about 20 miles down the valley. Still, you'll need to climb a few thousand feet to safely get over the mountains surrounding the valley. Check your airplane performance in the owner's manual before you launch. The tiny mountain stream has gathered strength from tributary creeks and now becomes the young Salmon River, meandering through the valley. From an airplane, the spectacular beauty of the Sawtooth Mountains is laid out. The view from the air is more three-dimensional and rich than from the ground. The interconnection of peaks, ridges, and valleys becomes apparent. When we walk the mountain trails, we see and sense our local environment without relating to a larger picture. Mountain flying gives that picture. In Idaho, we're fortunate to have such an incredible landscape and the freedom to fly over it. Our next destination is Stanley, right beside the Sawtooth Mountains and the Sawtooth National Recreation Area. Approaching from the south, we fly beside these beautiful mountains and the lakes below them. The largest of these lakes is Redfish Lake. This is a good place to make a position report to traffic in the Stanley area. The Stanley airstrip is just west of the Salmon River and south of town. Under most wind conditions, landings are made on runway 34, coming in from the south to avoid flying over town. There are a lot of air taxi operations at this airstrip, so be sure to talk and listen for other traffic on 122.9. Although the airstrip is 4,300 feet long and there are not many mountain obstructions right around the airport, the 6,300-foot elevation and usual crosswind from the west should keep you on your toes. The community of Stanley, like many Idaho mountain towns, was founded in the booming gold rush days of the late 1800s. After the gold ran out, ranching and logging followed. Today, even those industries are fading away, but Stanley has become a major central hub for outdoor recreation in the Sawtooth Mountains and on the Salmon River. Whether you want to fish, hike, bike, or raft, it's all convenient from Stanley. The town is just down the hill from the airstrip, so let's go down and see what's around. Stanley has a resident population of about 100, but in summer it swells considerably. They come for the outdoor recreation, flock to the restaurants, to the lodge, and to the only market in town. This is where you stock up on all your physical as well as your spiritual supplies. Camping by your plane is a little primitive, but there's a great view. You might consider one of the many hotels in and around town. Well, now that we're here, what's there to do? How about a day or an overnight horseback trip through the mountains? After a cup of espresso, you might be in the mood to rent a mountain bike and tackle one of the local trails. Fishing in the Salmon River and the nearby creeks is always popular, and there's a local shop to set you up with just the right gear and perfect advice. What's a trip to Idaho without some whitewater excitement? The local outfitters will set you up for a float on the Salmon River. There's calm parts, and then there's some places with a little more action. It might not be the most severe on the whitewater scale, but it can sure seem mighty exciting when you're bouncing through those rapids. Sometimes there's a little more excitement than you planned for. There's a different kind of water activity down at Redfish Lake, about 6 miles south. Remember, we flew in over it. The sandy beach is surrounded by pine forest and mountain peaks, and the sun warms the shallow water along the shore, so it's pretty comfortable for swimming. You can relax on the beach or actually get into the water with something that floats. They rent fishing boats and kayaks, as well as some very interesting and unusual paddle wheel toys. Redfish Lodge has rooms and cabins, as well as an excellent restaurant. Out back, there's a small but well-stocked general store for all your outdoor recreation needs. It's not all crowds and noise here at Redfish. There are quiet beaches and other nearby lakes where you can be by yourself to sit, to look, take pictures, take a nap, or try to outsmart a fish. You might have dreams of a lake packed with fish, but in reality, these are at the Sawtooth Fish Hatchery. Every year, thousands of salmon and steelhead are raised here and then released into Idaho streams and rivers. Maybe someday you'll be lucky enough to catch one of these. It's a very different flying experience to put on your helmet, goggles, and white scarf for a ride in the open cockpit biplane. This is real flying. Sightseeing tours over the Sawtooth Mountains give a feeling of what the early days of aviation were like. It's noisy and windy, but one of those flights you'll never forget. Well, daylight's burning, so let's head out to visit a strip in the wilderness area up north a bit. This next leg of our trip takes some thought and planning. You need to have a few hours of fuel on board, but you don't want to have too much weight that might make a problem with high altitude performance. It's not unusual to see fires caused either by lightning or humans. When you do see this, it's very likely that water bombers and smoke jumpers are in the area. For your own safety and for theirs, stay away from the fire area and give them plenty of airspace to operate. Flying to Indian Creek takes us over the middle fork of the Salmon River, very popular with whitewater rafts and kayaks. There's sometimes a lot of air traffic in the area, so keep on the right side of the canyon and use your radio to keep track of other aircraft. Get a good look when you pass by the airstrip, because after you go around the corner and turn final, it may be hard to see. Pay attention to your altitude and airspeed. Runway 22 runs upstream, so a go-round here means you need a lot of power to climb above the rising terrain. The dogleg approach close over the trees can be a little intimidating, but the strip is 4,600 feet, so there's plenty of room to make your turn and get it down and stopped. Indian Creek is one of the finest backcountry airstrips that's truly in the wilderness. Here on the banks of the middle fork of the Salmon River, we're in the middle of the Frank Church River of No Return wilderness. No roads, no vehicles. The only way to get here is on foot, on a horse, by a boat, or by airplane. When you come here, you have to bring everything you need. There's no lodge or convenience store nearby. If you didn't bring it in your plane, you're not going to have it. When the river's low, Indian Creek is a major launch point for Middle Fork floaters. Dozens of commercial air taxis bring in thousands of pounds of gear, as well as the rafters that are going to use it. Caravans, Islanders, and the Workhorse 206 carry loads that were probably not in the engineer's mind when they designed these planes. It's quite a job to haul the gear from the unloading area down to the beach. Rafts are usually carried by inflating them at the top and sliding them down the ramp. Everybody has a job to do, even if it's only sampling the water. Their cargo now offloaded, the air taxis head back to home base for another load. Lighter now, They roar into the air like frisky pack horses turned out to pasture. Even here, with a density altitude of over 6,000 feet, the turbine-powered caravan climbs out at 1,000 feet a minute without even breaking into a sweat. In the meanwhile, some rafters have finished packing and are on the river. They're glad to be away from the noise and congestion of the launch site and looking forward to the calm and peace of floating almost silently through the canyon. Pilots should think about the impact of their noise on these floaters and stay high above the river whenever possible. Kayakers are eager to get into the fast-moving and exciting parts of the river. Raft floaters give their thrills too. The river has many roles: a playground for boats, a complete world for fish, and it gives humans an opportunity to test their fishing skills.
Fishing on the Middle Fork is a real special thing because it's a natural stream compared to most any other place you fish in the country. It's kind of interesting. What you catch in here, 90% of them are cutthroat trout. And they don't grow real big in this system, but there's lots and lots of them. And they're not the smartest fish in the world, so they're pretty easy to catch.
Once the rafters and airplanes leave, the wilderness regains its silence and tranquility, and the creatures of the forest emerge. There are several options for camping here. You can set up your tent down on the sandy beach in the trees, although it's sometimes crowded with floaters. Here, there's a modern and high-tech toilet facility worthy of the space shuttle. At the other end of the airstrip is the pilot's campground, set in the trees behind the tie-down area. You're close to your plane as well as the river, and you don't have to go up and down a long flight of stairs. Sanitation is a little more primitive here, but the Forest Service has thoughtfully provided the finest of government facilities. There's good, clean drinking water for both camps, but it's a little bit of a walk from the campgrounds to the faucet at the Forest Service building. Speaking of camping, suppose you have a mechanical malfunction, or that beautiful weather takes a turn for the worse and leaves you grounded. You'd better be ready to spend some time here before you can fly out again. You'll be a lot happier if you have a sleeping bag or a good jacket to keep you warm, some rain gear like a poncho or a rain jacket, and something to eat and drink. A can of nuts, sardines, or tuna fish will keep in your plane for a long time, and food bars are pretty good too. Dog kibble will last practically forever, and although it's pretty bland, it really is nutritious. Of course you'll need some liquid, so you should have some water or a can of soda pop. These survival supplies can make your unplanned layover just an inconvenience rather than an epic adventure. Commercial air taxis aren't the only visitors to Indian Creek. Lots of pilots fly in here to camp, fish, hike, or just to practice their landing skills. The dogleg runway next to the hill makes you do some precision flying and turns close to the ground. flatland pilots should definitely have some backcountry flying instruction before coming here.
I have a 175 with 180.
This one.
This is mine.
Yeah.
Has 180 horse light combing. I want to learn about the backcountry, flying in and out of the backcountry, and it homes your skills whenever you're with somebody. But whenever you learn the drainages, I think that's whenever you get the knowledge of the backcountry. And I want to be a safe pilot. I think it's a beautiful strip, and I think that everybody should fly in and out of here. I will be back. Let's put it that way.
Although there's over 4,500 feet of runway, a hot day can double your takeoff roll and cut your climb rate by more than half. It's always wise to check your aircraft operating manual just to be sure you can do it. It may be safer to wait until evening when the air cools down and the down canyon winds subside. Here's a question for you. Which is more fun and excitement? Flying through the mountains and canyons of Idaho to land and camp in the dirt, or boring holes in the sky in Class B and C airspace under the watchful eye of a government air traffic controller? Our final destination on this tour is way up in the panhandle of northern Idaho, in the Selkirk Mountains, just 25 miles from the Canadian border. There's no gas on Priest Lake, so it's a good idea to stop in Coeur d'Alene or Sandpoint and fill up. How's this for a perfect flying destination? Superb grass airstrip, great camping, and a beautiful lake right at the end of the runway. What's more, there's just no end of things to see and do nearby. That's Cavanaugh Bay, on the shore of Priest Lake in northern Idaho. The approach over the lake is straightforward and the runway is long and wide. No wonder pilots come from all over the country to enjoy this place. Other animals enjoy the airstrip too, so keep a sharp lookout when you're on short final. You wouldn't want an expensive moose burger. You can camp in the trees or right beside your airplane. There's lots of tie downs and room for tents. The campground in the trees behind the tie downs offers tables with shelters, fire pits, and even flowers from the caretaker. You'll be relieved to find a good bathroom, a shower, and a wash-up sink. There's even a coffee pot and a microwave for your popcorn or leftover pizza. You might just be here for the day, or maybe not even in the mood to camp, but sign in anyway and check out all the other visitors. Then head over to the nearby lodge and restaurant to satisfy your inner cravings. At the marina, you can swim, fish, or play in the water to your heart's content. You can also rent a boat to fish or just paddle around a little bit. There are cozy cabins for rent at the marina and in nearby Coolin if airport camping isn't for you. Bicycles are an ideal way to get around here. The roads don't have any big hills, and the car traffic isn't bad. About 8 miles north of the airstrip is Priest Lake State Park. As you might expect, just about everything here is focused on the water. The camping is good, and the sandy beach is a great place to swim, play, or take a nap.
Good spot for fishing.
In addition to the things you can do on the beach, there's plenty more in the water, especially with toys that make a lot of noise. And if you're in the mood for noise and vibration, as well as some bugs in your teeth, rent a 4x4 ATV. There are many dirt roads and trails in the mountains nearby, and they'll keep you busy for hours. Better take a map though, just so you don't get lost. One of the pleasures of flying to these remote airstrips is the interaction with locals and visiting pilots.
Every airport has an old geezer, and I'm the airport geezer at Cavanaugh Bay Airport. And my name is Larry McCormick, and and I enjoy the job and the title.
What inspired you at age 16 to learn to fly?
Well, I just always knew I was going to learn. My first ride was a lesson. I didn't even, there was no doubt about it. That's kind of the way I am, but when I make up my mind I'm going to do something, so I used to ride my bicycle out to the airport and watch the airplanes, and just like most people that fly. And the strangest thing is I still really like to fly. I got that old Sea Ray sitting out there, or a little one, it's new, but I've got an old 172, and I just love flying that thing around.
My name's Alan Liskey. I'm the caretaker here at Cavanaugh Bay Airport. I really look forward to the summer months and operating the airstrip. We have 17 official tie downs. We have room for between 35 and 40 planes if they tie down themselves. Something that I like to do is I put on a pot of coffee every morning for the pilots and have a microwave available so that if they get up in the morning and have leftovers from the night before, they can pop her in there and reheat it and eat it again. Other places might have a nice airport, but they don't have a lake, or they might have a lake, but they don't have a mountain. And at Cavanaugh Bay, we have all that right here.
I enjoy very much flying up here all through Idaho. There are so many airports up here, and people are so aviation friendly that we really do enjoy it. Cavanaugh Bay here on Priest Lake is one of the more beautiful spots for sure. Here we have the lake, there's the marina, and all of the things that go along with that. You can buy ice every day if you need it to keep your food and beer cold. You can buy the basic sundries and what have you here.
Although Cavanaugh Bay is not a remote airstrip in the middle of a wilderness area, the charm of the grass runway, excellent camping, and a variety of recreation activities make it one of Idaho's favorites. Mountains, trees, grass runways, and avgas. That's a cocktail bound to be addictive. Now you've seen a few of Idaho's finest airstrips. There's dozens more. Most of them provide outstanding access to backcountry and wilderness areas. If you want to combine flying your airplane and outdoor recreation, Idaho is certainly a great destination. All mountain flying is challenging, and it requires training and practice. You can get the skills you need to fly into these airstrips by short field practice at your own airport, and then taking some flight instruction from a professional, qualified mountain flying instructor. With that knowledge, you'll open up a whole new world of flying opportunities. You'll be a better pilot, and you'll have access to the wilderness areas not only of Idaho, but of Montana, Washington, Oregon, not to mention Canada and Alaska. So keep up that practice, come visit. I'll be listening for you on 122.9.